know what you're thinking. Hey, Waylon, what's with the spooky atmosphere? Halloween was last week, right? Wait, hold on a second. It's December. So originally I was going to have November be like a month of Jojo, but then other things got in the way, like Thanksgiving, because that exists. So now I'm declaring December. Actually, I don't think a month of Jojo would work, given that it's already a week into December, and given my work schedule, so I'm just going to say, you know what? Jojo Marathon. So, let's get a move on with it. Starting, of course, with Phantom Blood. Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. What can I say that hasn't already been said by hundreds of thousands of other people? It's the story of Jotaro Kujo and his journey to defeat Dio Brando, all while mastering the power of his stand Star Platinum. Well, yes, but actually no. We have to go back to the very beginning. The Stardust Crusaders is part 1. It has stands and everything. I hear you getting ready to type in the comments. No. Stardust Crusaders is actually part 3 of Jojo, but I know a lot of people who think it is the first installment. Whether it's because they only watch the anime, or only know of it because of the big popularity surrounding part 3, it doesn't really matter. But what does matter is setting the record straight. So let me talk to you about Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, Phantom Blood. It's 1987, a time of video games, weird hairdos, and muscular men, and one young man named Hirohiko Araki is fresh off of making Bao the Visitor and Gorgeous Irene. Araki was fairly successful in these, but he wouldn't hit the big time until he released JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 1, Jonathan Joestar, His Youth. What a mouthful. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Phantom Blood, is the story of Jonathan Joestar, a 12-year-old brown, or blue-haired boy, who is the heir to the Joestar fortune and the only son of George Joestar. It takes place in 1880s Victorian England. This video is special. I've never really reviewed a book or anything like that before. Sure, the first real video of the channel was on the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, but that was still semi-video game related. Oh, I know! I can review the PS2 game that only came out in Japan. You know, that 3D brawler where you can regain stamina by posing, and even features the voice actors from that movie that never came out. Oh, and you can play a Speedwagon, Dio, Mr. Zeppeli, and a lot of Jonathans. Maybe not, never mind. Okay, so for this video, I went back and reread all of Part 1 through my Jojonium books. These are really awesome, by the way. It's the only way to read the manga. All nicely wrapped up in 3 books, rather than tracking down all 44 individual chapters, which is expensive, and probably not worth it unless you want to brag that you have a full collection. What do you gain from that anyway? An empty bank account? Well, anyway, because I read through the newest editions of Jojoniums, I'll be using the same names of characters and abilities from there, so unless you're some kind of purist who insists that I use the Japanese names for some reason, then, well, I hope you don't mind. Oh, and as for the anime, yeah, it's fantastic, but listen, guys, Warner Brothers are very stingy and not willing to share even a minute, not even 30 seconds worth of footage, without, copyright claiming or copyright striking me. So forgive me if I have to resort to using some weird border, or if I don't even get to use anime footage at all. And, that's primarily why I stopped making JoJo memes, due to the relentless copyright strikes I keep getting from them. It's 1868. George and Mary Joestar are traveling home in the rain when their carriage collides off the cliff. Mary and the driver over, and in the manga we get a little insight on how Jojo feels here. He misses his mom and laments that nobody will miss him should he vanish off the face of the earth. But that mood changes when he finds some leftover chocolate and munches down. Are ruined, so he forces himself on her and steals their first kiss. Now their love life is ruined and Jojo will never find happiness. Once Jojo finds out though, he's blinded by rage, runs home and jumps over a fountain to confront Dio. A recap of their boxing match happens for a short while until Jonathan taps into the real Joestar secret technique. Bloody as nose. In the manga, you actually see Danny burst out of the furnace covered in flames, so I'm kinda glad we didn't have to see that in the anime. No one wants to see dogs dying. Not yet anyway. Flash forward 7 years. Yep, just like that, in the blink of an eye, all those years pass, and Jonathan and Dio are now 19 and about to graduate college. With the celebration of their last rugby game, the two bond over their win like the true bros that they are. Jojo is set to become an archaeologist, while Dio is set to be a lawyer. While their friendship is of course a facade for the public, Jojo still has a hard time of letting go of Dio's early villainies, while Dio considers Jonathan everything but a friend, and is ready to throw the final curveball of his master plan now that they're both of age and ready to inherit the Joestar fortune. Speaking of the Joestars, back at the mansion, it seems that George Joestar himself seems to have come down with an illness. He's coughing up a storm and pretty bedridden. Well, it's more like Dio doesn't want his dad to go to a hospital since all they care about is money. Convinced by his son, George stays in bed since, he prefers being home with his family as it is, though Jonathan is slightly suspicious of Dio's actions. Later that night, in his study, Jonathan is analyzing a strange stone mask that his mom brought home from a trip to Mexico one year. It seems to have strange effects when blood is applied to it, like spikes shooting out the back of it. Since he's hoping to become an archaeologist, Jojo hopes to discover the secrets of the stone mask while allowing him to further science and all that jazz. When looking through his books to find anything that could help him on the subject, he stumbles upon a letter from the past. Dario Brando wrote it to George on his deathbed, the same letter he asked Dio to deliver to him. In the letter, Dario described having a horrible cough, swollen fingers, and chest pain. These were the same symptoms that plagued George, and Jonathan, of course, suspects something is wrong. At that same time, though, Dio is heading towards his father's room to deliver his medicine, but is caught changing it with something else by Jojo. He asks him what he's giving to his father before reading Dario's letter to him. As it turns out, Dio has been visiting a Chinese potion seller and has been buying poison from him. This poison kills you in a way that resembles a common illness, so it can't be traced back. Dio, of course, pretended to know nothing about what Jonathan is talking about and stops him from trying to look at the medicine. He threatens him with the end of their friendship and trust should Jonathan take it from him. That is until Jonathan forces his brother to swear on the honor of Dario that he's done nothing wrong and that he'll drop the subject forever. This grinds the devil's gears and flips into a rage, of course. Dario had no honor, so there's nothing to swear on. He goes to punch Jonathan, who takes it like a champ and throws Dio off the stairs. He threatens Dio should he ever try anything again, and demands that several doctors take care of his dad instead. He travels to London to have the poison checked out, seeing as how his college professors couldn't make heads or tails of it, and his quest for justice leads him to Ogre Street, the worst slums in all of London. That's when he's attacked by a gang of 3 miscreants who hope to steal everything he's got, and maybe a few fingers too. Jonathan is steadfast and doesn't flinch at his attackers, even grabbing the blade of his opponent, much to the shock and whimsy of the gang. Before anything can even happen, Jojo lands a swift kick and punch to the face of 2 of his aggressors, leaving just 1 left. The speedy man congratulates Jojo on his moxie, and asks if he really doesn't mind losing 4 fingers. Jojo, of course, asks for the fighting to stop, and asks where he can find an Asian apothecary, but the man isn't listening. He doesn't like taking lies from rich boys. His hat turns into a buzzsaw thing, kind of like a man-hack from Half-Life 2, and launches it at Jonathan. Jojo, in turn, kicks up the knife that he took from one of the thugs, and kicks it at his current opponent. The knife throws him off, but he still aims good enough to slice into Jojo's wrist and cut the bone. Jonathan isn't fazed, though, and pushes through the pain. His resolve is too great, and nothing will stop him from saving his father. So despite the pain he feels, he's able to run towards the thug and deliver a swift kick to the face, sending him flying backwards. As he's flying backwards, that thug just can't believe the sheer mental fortitude Jojo has, and regrets ever picking a fight with a guy like him. Jonathan is patching himself up, various other thugs arrive to presumably kill him. That is, until the man that Jojo kicked away tells him to stop, and reveals that his name is Speedwagon. Speedwagon proclaims that he'll never allow any harm to come to the gentleman who bested him in combat. Speedy looks around and realizes that his friends aren't dead, and have merely received flesh wounds. Jonathan spared his friends, even though they were trying to kill him, because he's a nobleman who only seeks to accomplish his goals with killing as a last resort. Kind of like Josuke. Speedwagon agrees to help Jonathan and takes him right to the Chinese guy's shop. Meanwhile, though, back home, Dio is coming up with a plan to kill Jonathan in a way nobody would ever suspect. Using Jojo's knowledge and research on the stone mask, he comes up with the idea to activate the spikes in the back and pierce Jojo's brain. Because the injury would be so unique, everybody would think that Jojo just killed himself on accident. It's the perfect crime for the perfect evil mastermind. Nobody would be able to trace the death back to him, Dio! However, once a few days pass and still no sign of Jonathan, Dio assumes that he died in an Ogre Street gutter. He celebrates by putting on some weird outfit and goes out for drinking for hours at a time. He's no different than his dad and hates himself for it. Nothing but a bumbling drunk. After bumbling into some bumbling drunks and getting insulted, Dio breaks his bottle over the face of one of the men, which causes him to start bleeding profusely. The old man's friend doesn't like that, so he goes in for the stab. Which Dio dodges, of course, deciding now would be a good time for the stone mask test. Grabbing the arm of his attacker and making him slice his friend's neck open, Dio takes out the mask and forces it onto the face of the old man. After getting it covered in blood, the spikes sink into his brain. Dio is prepared to solve the mystery of the mask, but is taken aback by a fantastic white light emanating from the mask. However, once the laser light shows over, he falls flat on the ground dead. Disappointed, but otherwise confident that the mask works, Dio starts walking away. That is until the same dead man gets up and starts attacking once more, this time bearing fangs and evil eyes. He sets his sights on Dio, who slices part of his hand clean off with the knife, but doesn't take any damage. In fact, with the swing of the missing hand, he's able to completely demolish half of a building! The shock from the building sends Dio flying backwards, breaking his collarbone as a result. Dio tries to escape, but is captured, and starts having the life literally drained from him. This man thirsts for blood, despite not knowing why, and is starting to take Dio's. His age is also rapidly decreasing, and goes from 80 to 20 in a matter of seconds. Finally realizing the real power of the mask, but is powerless to stop his death, Dio is prepared to take the secrets of the mask to his grave. That is, until the sunrise arrives and turns the vampire to dust before his very eyes. After patching himself up, Dio heads back home to prepare a strategy, but is met with a pitch-black mansion. When questioning the situation, he's met with Jojo, who tells him that he's learned everything and already gave the antidote to George. He pities Dio and feels bad. Despite never really being close, he really feels remorse for having to arrest him. Even if Dio doesn't believe him, he really feels that way, and that's something I admire about Jonathan. Despite everything, he knows why Dio is the way he is, and still feels bad for him. He's such a great guy with an awesome personality, and it's a shame that he gets a boring reputation. Dio, however, comes up with a plan and starts fake crying and playing the sympathy card. He asks Jojo to let him turn himself in, but really he comes bearing the mask and a knife to murder his brother. Jojo almost falls for it, that is until Speedwagon comes out from hiding and proves that Dio was evil from the very moment he was born. Even George, the police, and the Chinese man Wang Chen come out from hiding. Now, knowing everything, George gets teared up at the thought of his own son trying to kill him and starts to leave so he doesn't see his boy locked in chains. The police prepare to arrest him, that is until Dio asks Jojo to slap the cuffs on him himself. And when he gets close, he tells Jojo that he was caught because he was human and had weaknesses. And unless he can surpass being human, he'll keep making mistakes. Jonathan has no idea what he's talking about. That is until Dio loudly proclaims that he quits being human. He rejects his humanity and whips out the knife and mask in a quick attempt to kill Jojo before getting himself killed. Unable to move from the shock, he finds the knife piercing the flesh of his father, who ran ahead to take the blow for him. However, what's done is done and blood is shed. Dio takes the Joestar blood and wipes it on the mask that he's now donned on himself. A glorious light is emitted. Dio gives an insane and terrifying laugh as he's filled with the power of the ancients.
Shoot that maniac!
And the cops unload all their rounds into him, sending him crashing through a window. Jonathan isn't shocked that his dad took a knife for him and watches George die in his arms. George apologizes for being an asshole to Jonathan and passes on his wedding ring as one last memento. He dies right there, and as everyone starts to mourn, they're interrupted when a copper's face is ripped off by the surviving Dio. Time for a history lesson. You see, the stone mask was a tool created by the Aztecs to reach the same state of their gods. With a blood sacrifice, the mask feeds into the power and unlocks the brain's hidden potential, which leads to vampirism. Side effects may include an enhanced strength, intellect, speed, and of course, immortal life. Dio had become a vampire, just like the same guy who attacked him, and with his new abilities, he seeks to kill Jonathan and become the sole heir to the Joestar fortune without anyone to oppose him. He murders the other cops and breaks Speedwagon's leg. Jonathan, knowing that this is his fault, does his best to stop him, but to no avail. With an enhanced healing factor, even getting his hand impaled and a bullet to the brain isn't enough to stop him. It isn't until Jojo gets the idea of hurting him with fire does their climactic battle take them to the burning roof with Speedwagon looking on in terror. Get used to that. Jojo's life flashes before his eyes and he realizes he has nothing left to live for and nothing to lose, so should he die along with Dio, he would be content. Grabbing his brother and crashing through the ceiling, they find themselves falling to their deaths. Dio outsmarts him, says and prepares to make his escape, but Jonathan is also smarter than this and manages to pull Dio back to him and they fall once more. With a kick, Jojo was able to perfectly impale Dio on the statue of the Joestar family guardian. Unable to move, Dio is consumed by fire and seemingly turns to dust right then and there. Jojo is hospitalized, and when Speedwagon goes to visit him, he finds that he's being taken care of by a woman, despite it being like 3 in the morning. He withdraws coolly, knowing that his gentleman friend is in good hands. You know, in the manga, Speedwagon actually visits the hospital twice. Once where he drives an actual Speedwagon with his old thug friends, and he's turned away by the same woman, and the second time he breaks in to come check on Jojo, only to find that woman taking care of him. In the anime, the first visit was cut, presumably for a better flow. Jojo wakes up and catches the girl with his broken arm after she nearly faints from exhaustion. The girl turns out to be a grown-up Irina Pendleton who never really lost her feelings for Jojo and recently moved back into town. Finally having something to live for again, Jojo heals up quick thanks to her love, and the two go out for a stroll. In the middle of their walk, Jojo notices a weird guy has been following them the entire time, and soon that weird guy is in front of them. He calls out Irina and Jojo by their name, seemingly knowing of them, and leaps into the air, proclaiming that Jonathan had done well to survive the power of the stone mask, but its user still lives. He jams his pinky into Jonathan's chest, forcing out all the air from his lungs and imbuing him with a strange power. Soon his broken arm is healed, and he can lift a rock like it's nothing. The man reveals himself to be William Zeppeli, or just Baron Zeppeli for short. He shows Jojo the way of Sendo, a special martial art that uses the power of ripple energy, otherwise known as Hamon. Punching a frog and breaking a rock is enough to convince Jojo to listen to his story. See, he heard Wang Chen discuss the story of the Joestar Mansion fire and disappeared shortly after. As it turns out, Wang Chen wanted the stone mask for himself, so he went to try and get it. However, when digging through the rubble, a barely conscious Dio was able to grab his arm and drain Wang of all his blood. So if that greedy hadn't tried to get the mask, Dio would have died, Jonathan would have went on to live a much more peaceful life than he definitely deserves, but whatever. Wang Chen did it, so it doesn't matter. Baron Zeppeli also explains that he's been hunting the stone mask ever since he was a child, when his dad wore the mask after an excavation in Mexico. On the ship ride from Mexico to Italy, his father donned the mask and killed everyone on board, save for Baron, who jumped in the ocean and saved by sunlight. The mask stayed on the empty ship and found its way to the Joestar family. Meaning they themselves never went to Mexico and found it, or maybe there was more than one mask? No, it's probably just the same one. Anyway, Jojo shows a latent mastery of Hamon energy by unknowingly making a tree blossom and fueling it with life with the leftover Hamon that was in his arm. A week passes and Jojo and Zeppeli undergo a brutal training to change the way that they breathe in order to master the art of Sendo. During their training, they're attacked by a zombified Wang Chen, who is now a slave to Dio. With his razor-sharp blade claws, he goes in for the kill, but is very easily defeated by Jojo after getting a little taste of Hamon. Hamon and the stone mask are one and the same, two sides of the same coin. The energy that Ripple creates uses the energy of the sun itself, but to a much greater potency than that of the mask. Basically, they overflow with energy and die. Imagine you pump a balloon with too much air and it blows up. It has the same effect. Speedwagon is able to use his underground connections to confirm their suspicions that both Dio and Wang are indeed in the town of Wind Nightslaw. It would be wrong of him to involve himself up to that point and then not go to help him. Plus, it's not his style. So, joining Jojo and Baron, the trio make their way to the doomed town by carriage through a tunnel. Also in the manga, it gives us this frame of Speedwagon, so I think that's pretty cool. They're stopped halfway through the tunnel when their driver is killed and their horse spits out a man covered in knives. Don't you hate it when that happens? The man is the now undead Jack the Ripper and was sent by Dio to kill Jojo and crew before they can pose a real threat to him. Baron shows off his Hamon abilities by using his patented Hamon Cutter technique, when he spits out wine imbued with just a little bit of Ripple to slice through Jack's attacks and give him a little Hamon-powered kick. Realizing he's outmatched in the open, he breaks open a wall where there just happens to be a hidden passage full of night torture gear. He escapes inside, egging them on to fight him in the dark. Baron tells Jonathan to go alone, and also gives him a glass of wine, warning him that should he spill even a drop, Baron will drop him as his student. Speedwagon thinks that's a dick move, but Jojo accepts and understands his Viking metaphor. Navigating the dark passage and narrowly escaping death, Jojo abandons the torch and cloaks himself in darkness. Letting his breathing take control, he's able to feel the vibrations and movements of Jack behind a wall thanks to the power like that. It's never brought up again, so just a little fun fact as to why Speedwagon never learns Hamon. Cracking his crown thing and sending him flying out of the water. Overwhelmed with anger at being hit, and filled with the pride of a knight, Bluford rapidly extends his hair and captures Joe thanks to the shock of his attacker. All of Jonathan's emotions come hurling through him at once. His shivering heart, the burning heat of his finely cut blood. He unleashes the
Sunlight Yellow Overdrive!
Jonathan now knows that Bluford is different from other zombies. He knows his plight and pride of a knight, and honestly feels bad for him, but he's still a zombie and only exists to spawn more of his kind and drink the blood of the innocents. He must be disposed of. However, upon hearing Bluford proclaim the pain that Jojo brought him means nothing, he stops his attack altogether despite the sword that's, about to cut off his head. Everyone yells at Jonathan to do something, but he just stands there as the blade makes contact with his cheek and barely gives him a little baby cut. Bluford felt pain for once, a human emotion, meaning his humanity is returning to him in his final moments. As the Hamon courses through his veins, the ground around him bursts with flowers signifying his change of heart. Bluford acknowledges his pain and sorrow and respects Jonathan as a warrior and a friend from 300 years in the future. Feeling a bizarre peace, he's ready to meet back with his queen in the afterlife, and as a parting gift, he gives him his Sword of Luck, along with adding his own emblem, making it Pluck. And in my opinion, he knights Jonathan right here and there, especially since he calls him Sir Jonathan. The Sword of Luck and Pluck is born, and the two knights part ways. Oh, and in case you didn't realize or didn't know, Pluck means something along the lines of hard work and determination. This symbolizes Jonathan's hard journey to become a warrior, as his peaceful life was plucked away from him. Meanwhile, Dio symbolizes the luck element, because he was just lucky that Dario met George, and was lucky that they kept the stone mask, and I think that's just a great detail. Anyway, with Jonathan's new sword, he vows to defeat Dio to honor Bluford and anyone else that's been wronged. Also, Tarukas doesn't care about honor, and is still here by the way. He's disgusted by his former ally for admitting defeat so weakly. However, since he's huge, our trio of heroes doesn't stand much of a chance, seeing as how he's now destroying the ground right from under them. Making an escape through the use of leaves as a giant paraglider, Jonathan, Speedwagon, Baron Zeppeli, and that little kid from earlier, who is named Poco by the way, all get away, landing in the ruins of a night training grounds. It's here we learn more of Baron Zeppeli's backstory and the truth about how he discovered Hamon. After his encounter with the Stone Mask, Baron headed all over the world in search of it or anything that could stop it. In India, he was given the answer when he witnessed what looked like a doctor in his early 20s performing a hearing miracle on a patient's leg that anyone else would deem as needed to be amputated. Baron seeked to learn this skill, knowing that the energy the Indian man produced was the exact opposite of that of the Stone Mask. So he was given directions to that of the Indian man's master, Ton Petty of Tibet, and Baron made his way there. In Tibet, he found himself in a grand temple filled with hundreds of Hamon masters, all being taught by one man, Ton Petty. With a Hamon-filled handshake, Ton Petty learned everything about Zeppeli. His ripple energy was so advanced and fantastical that he could read all of Baron's energy from the mere touch of the hand. While his age isn't given in the manga, it's speculated that he's like 500 years old due to his complete and utter mastery of Hamon. Yet Baron looks like he's 80, maybe 90. At least that's what I myself has always assumed. Anyway, Tom Petty agrees to train Baron Zeppeli, despite warning him that a gruesome fate awaits him should he continue training. He agrees and soon becomes a Hamon master in training. Oh, and by the way, Jonathan got trapped in a night training hall known as the Lair of the Two-Headed Dragon. With a steel choker around his neck, Jojo tries to send a metal-silver overdrive through the chains, but they're too long and the Hamon dissipates halfway through. Soon his humerus breaks and he can't heal it due to his windpipe being blocked. So he can't breathe, his neck is broken, he can't use Hamon, and his friends can't get in. This is truly a predicament. Oh, and Poco pees himself and remembers that he has to stand up for himself and not be afraid, so he climbs through a small opening in the walls and opens the door from the other side despite taking a blow from Tarukas. Speedwagon grabs Poco and Zeppeli prepares to free Jonathan and realize his destiny. Charging headfirst to Tarukas, he accepts his fate and attempts to unleash a tornado spin overdrive, but is caught in Tark's chains, and is trapped and squeezed, pulling up both himself and Jonathan by the neck. Soon, with enough force, he is unfortunately snapped clean in half. Seeing Baron die horribly fills his heart with fury, but he doesn't have time to die. Baron Zeppeli, clinging to what life he has left, crawls towards Jonathan and grabs his arm and prepares his greatest hidden ability, the ultimate Deep Pass Overdrive. With his dying breath, he passes over his entire life force and all of his Hamon energy into Jonathan, surging him with power and instantly healing his wounds. Jonathan soon breaks his solid steel collar and murders Tarukas with very little effort. In the end, Baron William Zeppeli makes peace with his death and confides in Jojo that he felt he was like a son to him and a best friend. Though he's proud of Jonathan and Speedwagon, he tells him that this is not the time to mourn and they have to beat Dio not for him, but for everyone around the world. They burn his body and Speedwagon takes up his hat in honor of his memory. A little time later, when they're on their way to Dio's castle, they encounter a man who apparently knows Poco, but actually the man is a zombie. Jojo kills him without even looking at him. Also, another man arrives who is presumably another opponent, and hey guys, look, it's Polnareff! Actually, it's someone else entirely, and it's not a zombie or anything like that. It's another Hamon master by the name of Dyer, and he's accompanied by his friend Straitso and none other than the master Ton Petty himself. The two of them were Baron Zeppeli's best friends and training partners, and the three of them came after Zeppeli sent them a letter detailing the whereabouts of the mask. Sadly, with Baron Zeppeli gone, they can do nothing but hear Jojo's plight and prepare to aid in the fight instead. Ton Petty, Dyer, and Straitso are amazed at Jonathan's latent talent with the ripple, and soon they arrive in Dio's throne room. Jonathan is back from hell and ready to send Dio there himself. And though it pains him as a gentleman to say it, Jonathan Joestar vows to kill Dio where he stands for revenge! Revenge for the fall of Baron Zeppeli, revenge for the corruption of the good knight Bluford, and revenge for the murder of George Joestar. Dio halts his zombie army and agrees to fight Jonathan one-on-one, even going as far as to say he didn't want to kill Jonathan himself due to them growing up together. Yet having underestimated him and his ability to defeat Tarukas has made him learn better. They're both finally ready to have it out, so that is until Dyer steps in and offers to take Jojo's place. He and Baron were best friends and training partners for over 20 years. For Dio to just take that away from him burns a hole of hatred in his heart, and he wants a slice of that revenge. He goes on the attack, but is caught by Dio before he has any chance to do anything. However, he fell for it, fool! Thunder Cross Split Attack! Nobody has ever beaten it! Dio, however, is able to counter it by freezing Dyer's entire body and kills him then and there. Speedwagon handing Jonathan his sword of luck and pluck, and teaming up with Tom Petty and Straightso to help give Jonathan some breathing room for fighting Dio. Jonathan goes on the offensive right away and hides in Dio's blind spot, and with a swift slice of pluck, he cleaves Dio's right arm right off! Without hesitation, he goes for the killing blow and stabs Pluck right into Dio's skull and cuts right down the middle. Everyone's amazed at the vampire's defeat, but the victory is a short one as they soon realize Jonathan had also been frozen. Dio then jams his hand into Jojo's neck and prepares to fill him with vampiric essence and turn him into an undead minion. All seems to be lost until they both realize where they've been standing when Dio froze Jojo. You see, Dio just had to spring for the ambient torches and left himself vulnerable to the fire, because the fire heated up Pluck and thawed out Jonathan's arm. This allowed him to charge up a hormone-packed overdrive punch to Dio's face! This, however, didn't connect because he made contact with Dio's skin and was thus able to get frozen again. Dio was unharmed and reattaches his severed arm, along with putting his two halves back together again. Despite Dio's claims that human ability is weak, limited, and useless, Jonathan is determined to prove him wrong. The human spirit is able to overcome any odds against it, no matter what challenges it. Jonathan swings around, catching some fire in his hands, and sends his hormone energy coursing through his fists for a Sendo hormone-packed punch! With flaming fists, he's able to push through Dio's ice and make contact with his body, sending hormone all throughout the vampire's figure. I gotta say how fantastic this scene looks in the anime. All the colors and sparkles that radiate off of Jojo's hormone is awesome to look at, but not for Dio, who is sent flying off the very top of his castle. However, not being one to admit defeat, he brings out his last-ditch attack, known as his Space Ripper Stingy Eyes! Oh, and Dio wasn't dead. When he was falling down, he cut his head off to stop the hormone from melting his brain, but his body was utterly destroyed along the way. His head hit the ground, but was picked up by Wang Chen! Yeah, I bet you forgot about him, huh? Yeah, he leaves and finds his way to hide before daylight comes, holding Dio's head in like a sack. Apparently he stole a fishing boat and was hiding away in the ocean, according to a newspaper article. According to that same newspaper, 73 people were killed, turned into zombies, or eaten because of Dio that night in his attempt to take over the world. Speedwagon has the honor of destroying the stone mask, and a few months later in February, Jonathan Joestar and Irina Pendleton get married. See, this adventure took place in December, so obviously it's appropriate to talk about it here. February 2nd, 1889, Jonathan marries Irina, and the next day they're off to their honeymoon in America. Speedwagon rushes to see them off, though he bumps into some cargo men along the way. This interruption is not enough to stop him from seeing off his best friend, along with Tom Petty, Poco, Straightso, and Poco's sister. Oh, even Speedwagon's old gang friends are there too! So that just proves that no matter who it is, Jonathan is able to move the hearts of those he fights. He truly is a real gentleman. Soon they depart, and Irina is just overjoyed with love and tears at them finally being able to be together. They head below deck to enjoy dinner together, and even share a cute moment of Irina tasting wine for the first time. However, their great moment is interrupted because right when Jonathan and Irina are having a nice time together, Jonathan spots Wang Chen staring at him, who then heads further below deck to the engine room. This triggers his PTSD as he realizes that if Wang Chen is here, then Dio survived their encounter and is alive on the ship. Yeah, I tried playing up the mystery, but Dio is here and his head is inside that weird coffin thing that the cargo men carried onto the ship. Jojo tells Irina to run to the room and lock the door, but I'm glad that she didn't do that, as soon everyone in the dining room is turned into a horde of zombies. Wang Chen opens the coffin and takes out Dio's head, which is being kept in a jar, and just seeing that sends Jonathan into like a real disgruntled state. Dio confides in Jojo that even though he once hated him, he now has nothing but respect for the gentleman knight. Because of Jojo, he was able to obtain great power, but also because of Jojo, he was left as nothing but a head. Obviously, their fates are tightly woven together. Their existence is one, and shall soon become one. He realizes now that the only person to fit as his new body is Jonathan himself. The only man he both respects and admires is the only man fit to become his new eternal body. As one last gift of respect, though, he prepares his laser eyes to give Jojo a painless death. He isn't messing around. He goes straight for the laser eyes, and Jonathan tries to block despite already knowing that the laser can cut through flesh and the sky itself, and both lasers make direct contact and pierce his neck. Also, the ship around them literally goes to hell as zombies infest the area, chasing Irina also inside the engine room. He might not look like much, but surely she remembers Dio. She doesn't get much of a chance to speak as the walls begin to tear apart due to the zombie outbreak. Wang Chen turned one guy into a zombie, who then infected everyone else around the ship. Now they plan on taking Jonathan's body for Dio, heading to America, further their reign of terror, and take over the entire world once again. Now, everyone on the ship is zombified, save for a husband, wife, and the child, who try running the engine room for safety for some reason, but the husband is killed, the wife and her baby get thrown through the wall, only the baby surviving. Wang Chen moves to kill Jonathan and belittles him for failing so easily, which Dio is having none of. He will not tolerate any disrespect towards Jojo and demands that he's killed painlessly, which Wang Chen prepares to do so. Jonathan is able to use the last of the hormone in his body to destroy Wang Chen's head and sends him crashing into the gears and mechanisms that power the ship. This comes at the cost of something important breaking inside his body and he falls flat on his back. This is the end. His hormone, however, was able to make Wang Chen's body cling onto the boat's paddle screw shaft, and with the strength of a zombie is able to make it stop so pressure builds up and will eventually blow the ship up. This was Jonathan's last effort to totally destroy Dio. Irina and Jojo share one last passionate moment, and despite Irina wanting to stay and die with her lover, Jonathan insists that she escapes and takes the baby that fell through the wall with his mother. His mom died to save him, as did the other mother. Jojo tells Irina to live for that baby and for him. Dio isn't one for melodrama though and interrupts the moment. The amazing, floating, talking head of Dio tells his zombies to eat Wang Chen's body and restart the machinery, but it's already too far gone, and soon everything starts to explode around them. Jonathan shields Irina from the blast and several sharp bits of shrapnel by simply letting them stab him. Dio, however, prepared for the event of an explosion by having his coffin padded and built to withstand over a ton of dynamite. So now with his gross veins, he plans on severing Jonathan's head while his body is still fresh, planting himself on his neck and walking over and resting inside of it. Jojo, however, is not one to go out without a fight and stabs Dio's neck with a piece of shrapnel from his back to stop the attachment process. Irina gets blasted away and lands in the coffin with their baby, while the flames begin to surround Jonathan and Dio. Taking Dio's head into his arms and giving him an honest hug, he realizes that Dio was right when he said their fates were intertwined. Seeing him as a brother to the very bitter end, he accepts him and his fate to be bonded with Dio as they disappear with the ship. He says farewell to Irina and welcomes his end with a smile. Meanwhile, Dio does nothing but plead with Jojo to let him keep him alive and make him immortal. He doesn't want Jonathan to die, not because he won't have a body anymore, but because in the end, he too sees Jonathan as his brother and really feels sad for him. But he's too late, and in the end, on February 7th, 1889, Jonathan Joestar dies. Everything is consumed by fire, and soon the entire ship explodes and sinks to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Thankfully, however, Irina was inside the coffin and managed to survive. Jonathan will go down as an unsung hero to everyone in the world, save for his friends and his descendants. The baby that was rescued along with the new life inside of Irina will carry on the Joestar legacy for years to come. Irina herself floated in the ocean for roughly 2 days before she was saved in the Canary Islands by a fishing boat. She would go on to give birth to Jonathan's son, George Joestar II, and raise the little girl that she rescued, which of course leads into part 2 of JoJo's bizarre adventure, Battle Tendency. That was pretty good, huh? But, this video is getting a little long, so in order to wrap things up, I just want to say, stay tuned for the rest of the JoJo Marathon, and Jonathan willing, I'll be able to get the Battle Tendency video out before the end of the year. So, in case I don't, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that good stuff, and stay tuned. Oh, and Jonathan Joestar is the best JoJo!